My question is along the lines of like textual criticism and manuscripts.
Uh-huh.
My question is, I have like a layman's knowledge of it. My question is, what, like, resource wise, where should I go to start to develop a deeper knowledge of it? It kindled a deeper fire in me because I was recently watching a lecture of yours on the reliability of the New Testament, and I think it was after your debate with Iglesia and Cristo, and you were talking about how in Isaiah 6, in the Septuagint, which would have been most likely the Bible,
Right.
the Old Testament that Jesus and his disciples had, then in Isaiah 6, it doesn't say the train of his robe filled the temple, but his glory filled the temple.
Right.
And so how in John 12, they would have known exactly what John was saying and that Jesus was identified as Yahweh. And I was like, man, it would be awesome if I just knew stuff like that. I was glad to learn it, but I was like, man, where do I go to learn stuff like that?
Well, the sort of exciting thing is just a couple months ago, I was in Davidson, South Africa, which is one of the townships there in the Johannesburg area, very poor area. And the church there had asked me, every time I go to those places, they ask me to talk about Jehovah's Witnesses. And so here's this really excited group of folks, and they know about Isaiah 6 in the Greek Septuagint, and the vast majority of Christians around the world do not, because that's definitely one of the things that I share with people every time I make that type of presentation. But obviously that information was in my book on the Trinity, and as far as resources, we used to carry a number of things. Obviously I think they're still available through our Amazon bookstore or something like that. But Philip Comfort's book, Textual Commentary on the Greek New Testament, is extremely useful along those lines. Got a lot of information in it. Obviously, my own book on the King James Only controversy gives you a lot of background information as well. Metzger's commentary on the Greek New Testament is not as easy to read. Comfort at least tries to make it understandable. In fact, most of Philip Comfort's stuff is meant to, like, encountering the New Testament's manuscripts. In fact, no, I've put it in the other room. I used to have it behind me here. But a lot of his stuff is meant to be a little bit more understandable to folks. The problem is that material on textual criticism and textual critical issues is rarely meant to be accessible to the layman. Almost all of it assumes a knowledge of the biblical languages, minimally Greek, and sometimes more than that. And so it is a challenge. Comfort can get you past some of that, but it is a bit of a challenge along those lines, because the assumption is, well, if you're looking at textual criticism of Greek manuscripts, then you must be able to read Greek manuscripts. And that's not necessarily the case with everybody today, especially now that so much more of that information is becoming available electronically. Like Philip Comfort's commentary is available, I'm sure. I know it's in Accordance. I imagine it's in Logos as well, so you can get it electronically, which is sort of neat. If you have a program like Accordance or Logos, Olive Tree, you can get those resources and create a screen that would have, for example, your favorite English translation, then maybe the Nessialan 28th edition, and then the text notes, and then the commentary right next to it. And that can be very helpful, but at times it can be also very frustrating if you can't read the language, because you can see something's going on, but you may not necessarily be able to make heads or tails out of exactly what it is. So those are some of the issues. If you really want to know that kind of stuff, one of the best things to do, people always ask me, what are the two classes you took that helped you the most? Church history and Greek. And even a first-year level knowledge of Greek will open up those textual footnotes for you so that you can tell exactly what's going on. Any person who has gone through Mounts, a first-year grammar, will be able to understand what the footnotes are about and follow the discussions and stuff like that. That makes a huge difference right there.
Okay, I had one more quick related question if time permits.
Real quick, yeah.
Okay. In your opinion, because I mean, this is like your field of expertise, what is the reason, specifically in American Christianity, where there's not as much interest in learning how the Bible came together historically? Because in my experience, like, not that I have like this perfect knowledge, but I feel like I have enough to where like I can converse with the Roman Catholic. Whereas like I see with my friends or just people in general, it comes to questions of the canon and they just get their heads lopped off because they haven't thought about it. It's like, why is there like this lack of wanting to know where it came from?
Well, I don't know what gave you that interest, but the fact of the matter is, in the vast majority of evangelical churches in the United States, it is not modeled to people from the pulpit to have those types of concerns or interests. And so if you don't have those things coming to you in the church, in your Sunday school classes or wherever else it might be, if you don't have a minister making reference to these things, you don't even know it's important. And if you're not involved in talking with other people, in something more than on Facebook or Twitter, anyways, in serious conversations, if you're not challenged in that way, then why would you spend your time on it? Why would you invest yourself in it? So obviously, for me, it's simple for me. I have to deal with this stuff all the time, so I realize those types of things. And if other people are doing the same things, they have the same set of priorities. But look, most of our folks don't get involved in meaningful conversations with people from other religious faiths. They don't get challenged, and so when they do, it can get pretty ugly, as you said. So I think there's a lack of interaction with other perspectives. We're happy with what we got. And we're not overly, look, amongst a lot of evangelical churches, sort of like, just leave the Mormons alone, just leave the Jehovah's Witnesses alone. There's plenty of just plain old pagans out there that you can go talk to. The problem is those plain old pagans are reading Bart Ehrman now. So we're behind the eight ball. We really are. We're as always, the truth is still putting its shoes on while error has run the first quarter mile. So that's just sort of the way it's always been.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you for your phone call. I appreciate it. God bless. Bye-bye. All right. Real quick, let's talk to John. Hi, John.
Hey, Dr. White.
Yes, sir.
Hey. It's funny. I actually called you 2 weeks ago. I think I was talking about how my wife's kind of reconverting back to Roman Catholicism. I don't want to bug you over and over. Maybe one day I'll be able to call in and be like, hey, I got her back.
well, you can certainly do the best you can, but that's not your job, unfortunately.
Yeah. Understood. So I had just some quick questions. So I'm actually going to be kind of going into my own debate with one of the people on her side, and this guy has actually been on Catholic Answers and has his own conversion stories to the Roman Catholic Church. But it's kind of like I'm going to be facing a guy with a PhD, and I've been doing this for maybe like 6 months.
Well, that seems fair.
Yeah. But I'm the one. Well, we're both challenging each other. I think it was fun. It is fun for me. I've been studying you a lot because I think you're the main person that I see going head to head with their leading Roman Catholic apologists. But I wanted to ask a couple things. I think we're going to start with Sola Scriptura because the last time I called, you had mentioned authority would probably be the first thing you want to get agreement on.
Well, you're not going to get agreement on it. Everything is going to go back to it.
Yeah. I was wondering kind of strategies on going about that. I suppose maybe knowing the canon and how to debate that part, and then Sola Scriptura itself and the scriptures. I was wondering if there's any other things I need to look into.
Well, if you haven't obtained the 3-volume set by William Webster and David King on Sola Scriptura, I would highly recommend it because it deals with the vast majority of the arguments. William Webster has done a great amount of work on the Apocrypha, on the differences between, for example, the early canon lists and then the Council of Trent. They actually define things differently, though most Roman Catholics aren't aware of that. because they didn't understand exactly which books were which or what their names were, and so on and so forth. And then just simply the massive number of patristic citations that were amassed by, especially by David King, in one of the volumes there would be extremely, extremely useful to you. And then you have to combine that with Dr. Kruger's books on the canon, so you understand where that's coming from. You saw, obviously, I would assume you saw the conversation that Dr. Kruger and I had on the canon from G3. G3. So his books would be an important follow-up there. But you're not going to end up with any agreement on that.
Right.
But you can most definitely demonstrate the incoherence of the argumentation. So, for example, in the debate I just did with Peter D. Williams, he repeated the canon has to be a part of Revelation or you're violating sola scriptura. I pointed out that presuppositionally, he is assuming certain things, not only about the nature of Scripture, but the nature of the canon, that he then cannot apply to the church, which becomes his ultimate authority after that. And so I have a feeling that he and I will probably end up addressing that, because I want to go directly at his distinction without a difference argument, because it's what you're going to get from Catholic Answers too. That's their primary argument as well. I happened to flip through on the local Catholic radio station just a few days ago and heard them doing the exact same thing. So there's a fair amount of that's a fair amount of material right there, because those are secondary sources. They'll make reference to William Whitaker and to Goode, Goode. These were also post-Reformation resources that have a tremendous amount of information in them, as well as Salmon's book, The Infallibility of the Church. These are all things that those of us who have been dealing with Roman Catholicism for a long time have sitting on our library shelves, and they're well worn and well used. And I don't know if they're available electronically yet, but you need to have them, and those are going to be your go-to sources on that.
Awesome. One of the things mentioned by the person I'm going to be speaking with as his refutation of sola scriptura was going to Martin Luther and saying he was trying to get rid of the Book of James and things like that.
Well, that's irrelevant. That shows again, when someone does that, I automatically know I'm not really dealing with a super serious person, because they somehow think that's going to be shocking to me. First of all, Martin Luther quoted from James as scripture even after that time period. Luther said a lot of things that did not end up translating into him believing he had any power or ability to do any of those things. But if you want to go there, then the easy thing to do is to point out that Cardinal Cajetan, who interviewed Luther in 1518, himself rejected the apocryphal books all the way up until that point in time and represented the views of popes as well as Jerome on that subject. We can have, as I've said many times, so much for the infallibility of Luther. They can't do that with the Pope. They can't go so much for the infallibility of the Pope. Well, there you go. Which is, you can do that with the current Pope as well. He's out in La La Land on a bunch of stuff. But the point being that on the issue of authority, those who live in glass cathedrals should not be chucking bricks around. And that's really where they find themselves at that particular point. So anyways, John, we went overtime just for you. I hope those resources will be helpful to you. And I'd be real interested in seeing how all that turns out. But appreciate your call today.
Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you. God bless. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. There you go. Open phones went 5 minutes long, but that's, we're not on a network, so we can do whatever we want to do. And besides that, we fiddled around for 5 minutes trying to get the phone system back up. So, so there you go. Gonna try over the next 3 weeks to do some Skype stuff. Some of you may remember that in July, I frequently am away. So we have done Skype stuff before. So we'll try to make it work. We'll plug it in and make it work. Not sure when, though, but we'll let you know. Thanks for watching. God bless.